Hello, my name is Reverend Thomas Coughlin. I'm deaf. I was born deaf. My parents are also deaf, just like my grandparents who are deaf. I'm from New York and from a small town near the Canadian border called Malloy. I have three sisters. Three hearing sisters. Two of them are interpreters. The second one married a deaf boy. They have a baby girl now. Growing up, I went to Rochester School, which is known for its finger spelling. When I was 12, my parents sent me to a camp near Buffalo, New York. I went there. The nuns met and chatted with my parents and said, "Why don't you send your son to a Catholic school in New York? It's a good school, good environment for your son." So my parents thought that was a good idea, and they sent me there when I was 12. I went there for about 8 or 9 years. It was a very different environment. The school, I learned a lot from the school about religion, about values and prayers. I really became interested in religion, and one day one of the nuns, when I was in high school, gave me a book called The Less Traveled Road. And I read that book, and it's about a man who became a Catholic monk. And it's about his story, 4 years, and then he died later in life. I read the book, and I thought it was very interesting, and it started to make me think. So I asked the nun for more books, and I kept reading, and I got hooked on the idea of becoming a priest. So I thought about it when I graduate, since I'm a senior now. My parents talked about me going to Gallaudet, but I thought about other things. Everyone said no. Because I was deaf, I had a problem with communicating. I started to think that they were all right. I can't do it. But inside I had a voice that said, you should try anyway. So do I listen to the people telling me no, or do I listen to myself? So I wrote a letter to these different places, and I sent them off, and I said, hey, I'm deaf, and they immediately rejected me. They said they couldn't accept it because I'm deaf. So I sent a letter, kept saying the same thing. The world's not ready for a deaf priest. So I wrote one more letter. I wrote the letter, but I didn't say that I was deaf at all. I'm in high school, I'm a high school student, and I sent it off. And we were communicating back and forth for maybe 3 or 4 months. Then he started asking me about my school, where I'm from, my name. I was like, oh crap, well, my school's name is St. Mary's School for the Deaf. It says it right in the name, deaf. That word, I'm done. What do I do? So I wrote the letter back, and I said, I'm a student, I'm an all-American student, deaf boy. But I wrote the deaf boy really small, so I was hoping that they would miss the part that I said I was deaf, and I sent it off. Well, he sent it back, and it said, oh, I don't know, I didn't know you were deaf. I didn't know you were handicapped. I can't accept you. I don't know if that's right. But then the last line, he said, have your school principal send us a report. So I asked the principal to send a report about my grades, my IQ, my communication skills, and they were communicating back and forth, discussing seminary school and me getting accepted. What should I do? So they wanted to meet with me in person, so I flew there. Except I didn't have an interpreter. This is 1967. They didn't have a lot of interpreters. Well, I flew there. And I met with this guy, a priest. He said, oh, are you Tom? Okay, so I got in the car and we drove there. We arrived. I was waiting in the office. I walked into the office and sat there. We shook hands. The first question he asked me, it really threw me off, was I thought he said, first thing, how tall are you? I flew all the way here for you to discuss how tall I am? Well, I responded, I'm 5'10". And he just looked at me amazed and said, you understand me? I didn't know you could communicate. He was like, well, I read lips. But deaf people can't talk. Well, I read lips. I learned it in school. He asked me another question. How old are you? I said, I'm 21. It's impossible. I didn't know. He was laughing. For a long time, he was worried. When he found out that I was deaf, that I wouldn't be able to communicate, that I couldn't accept you. Well, now I'm feeling scared, just like he was. I'm looking at him, and we're having this interview. For 1 hour, we were just chatting. He talked about how he'd see other deaf people and they'd have problems communicating. One month later, I found out I was accepted into the seminary school. I had beaten one challenge, but I knew it wasn't going to be easy. So I walked in. I knew I had these other challenges. Because I could rip lip read. Oh. The first night in seminary school, I was crying. Because I couldn't communicate. At night, we had this group. We would meet, 36 of us at night. We would meet. And a boy asked me, what's your name? I said, I'm Thomas Coughlin. And he looked at me and said, I can't understand you. I just sat there. I know I'm not the greatest, but at school I could communicate with everyone. Now this is a new environment, and he can't understand me. But I just had to keep going on. Now my goal in high school is to enter seminary school. In seminary school, practice about prayers and focusing on theology, like psychology. I had an interpreter. The first semester, I failed. For my first test, I failed. I didn't understand what the problem was. I studied really hard. I got really down on myself. What should I do? I wanted to try again. My teacher agreed to throw out the test so I could try again in 2 weeks. I studied for the test and I passed with a C. I said, okay, that's a passing grade. Everyone around me studied, but they had it easier. I had it twice as hard because I'm deaf. In my life I can communicate and I'm missing stuff. So I really need to focus. 4 years passed. I finished. I actually passed. I passed the proficiency test. And other students had failed. I think it's really important to read. Reading skills are very important. After I got my degree, I was an ordained Catholic priest. I was the first deaf priest in all of the U.S. and in North America. In Europe, there's a few. I was really proud of myself. I'm ready to work all over the U.S. But I work for organizations called International Deaf. I worked there for 4 years. I met with people. I met with people all over the world. I would meet with people and they would people that had the same problems as I did, and they would be really down on themselves. They would give up. But it's important to try. Up till now, 13 years have flown by. Happened so fast. I moved to Hawaii. I lived in Hawaii for 3 or 4 years in a program, doing a program there. So I moved. The culture is very different. Filipino, there's a whole mix of cultures. It's my 3rd year here. I did a summer camp. It was a hotel that went bankrupt and the government seized it. So my friends and I, we bought it and made it into a camp. So for 3 years, we needed a nurse, but it's hard to find one. So myself, I went to school to become a nurse. Same thing happened. Everyone said, because you're deaf, you can't do it. You can't communicate. Again, I thought it's important to sit down and discuss with them how to communicate. I can read lips. I know it'll be hard, but it's more about your attitude. Finally, I got accepted. It wasn't easy. Communicate with patients and the stethoscope. There's a lot of vocabulary, medicines. A lot of studying had to be done. But I like the challenge. Thinking back, I'd do it again. Maybe I wouldn't become a priest, or maybe I'd become a doctor. It's important to fight for what you believe in. Just because it's hard, don't be scared. Listen to what's inside. Yes, there are going to be limitations, but don't oppress yourself. Don't tell yourself you can't do it. Just try. It won't be easy. I know many people all over the world who don't believe in themselves. They feel worthless. They feel like they're nothing. Jesus said to blind people, you can see. For crippled people, you will walk again. For sick people, you'll be healthy again. For deaf people, he didn't say that you'll hear again. For the deaf, he said be open. The word means open. Open your mind, open your heart. Be open to the world. Don't limit yourself. Don't close yourself off to the world. Thank you.